The following program is brought to you by friends and partners of End Time Headlines.
All right, what is up, everybody? And welcome to the first day of the month of July in 2025. This is End Time Headlines, news and headlines from a prophetic perspective. Of course, I'm your host, founder, pastor, and voice of End Time Headlines, Ricky Scaparo. We want to welcome you to today's program. Listen, if you're new, first time joining us, being a part of our program, let us know in the comments or in the chat below that you are new and where you guys are joining us from. I myself want to welcome you. Our admins will welcome you. We want you to know that we love you already. We want to tell you we want to say welcome home. We pray that you'll stick around and be blessed by our content and by our fellowship here at End Time Headlines. Why don't you go ahead and do us a favor? Everybody that's watching, listening at this time, why don't you go ahead and hit that like button? That's going to help push us out there, get eyes on our program, let us be seen, get the visibility out there. And of course, if you don't have our app yet, we want to encourage you to pick it up today. It's absolutely free. It's going to be a blessing to you. You can pick it up on Apple, pick it up on Android, whatever device you've got, we've got you covered. Just hit yes to push notifications and you're going to be squared away. So we got a lot to talk about today. And I believe these are key events. The first thing I want to talk about is something we covered a little bit of this last night. By the way, we had a great devotional and prayer time last night. And again, if you're not part of this, we want to encourage you to be a part of this on every Monday night, right here on our YouTube channel, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. We come together live as the body of Christ. All of our ETH family listeners alike come together and we do our live devotionals and prayer services. So you definitely want to be a part of that. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, and maybe you're listening by Apple or Spotify or somewhere else out there watching or listening, we want to encourage you to come over here and subscribe so that you can be a part of this when we do these programs on Monday night. But nevertheless, one of the things at the end of that program, we touched on this a little bit, and we're going to get into this a little bit more today, a little bit more details. So I'm going to pull this up, and that is a top Iranian cleric that has issued a fatwa against President Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, the reason why this is a big deal, this is one of the most important Shiite clerics in the entire world who made this declaration. The Grand Ayatollah Makarim Shirazi of the Iranian holy city of Qom has just issued a fatwa which officially declares Donald Trump to be an enemy of God. Not only Donald Trump, but Benjamin Netanyahu, which I suspect was probably already on that list. But nevertheless, in Iran, those that are designated to be enemies of God under Islamic law are typically executed. So just to let you know the severity of this announcement and this declaration that this Iranian cleric has made. According to Iranian news source, the reason why the Grand Ayatollah has issued this fatwa is because Trump threatened Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khomeini, and other top Iranian officials. Now, again, for us Westerners that are watching or maybe listening to this, we hear this, somebody coming out and making a statement like this, declaring them to be an enemy of God. We brush this off as rhetoric or nonsense. But again, in Shia Islam, it is a technical theological term that has grave implications. For example, and I want to credit Michael Snyder. I'm going to read a little bit from his article. He did a little bit more research on this, so we're going to credit that. This is going to be my source for what we're talking about here. But he points out in his article, in his research, that one example of this is the fatwa that was issued against Salman Rushdie. After the fatwa was issued, Rushdie had to live in hiding. He was forced to live in hiding for years, but eventually an attacker caught up with him anyway. Now, and think about that, okay? Now President Trump is facing a very similar threat. The Grand Ayatollah is calling on all Muslims around the world to work together to make a criminal American president, quote, pay for what he has done. Now, in light of the recent events that's taken place here in the West, here in America, the event that took place in Colorado, what happened up in Washington, what happened in New York, this can have very serious and grave implications to it. I'm going to just read what he said. This is his official statement. Quote, after threats were made by the criminal American president and the leaders of the child-killing Zionist regime against the leader of the Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, and the senior Shiite clerics known as Marja, a group of believers submitted a request to His Eminence Grand Ayatollah Makarim Shirazi regarding the duties of Muslims in response to such threats. Grand Ayatollah Makarim response to the question put forward by his followers is as follows, quote, any person or regime that threatens a leader or Marja, which literally translates to may God forbid, is considered an enemy of God. Again, the statement was made in response to the questions that was given to him. Quote, the senior Iranian Shia Marja, excuse me, guys, I keep tripping over that word, added that any cooperation or support for that enemy by Muslims or Islamic states is haram or forbidden. It is necessary for all Muslims around the world to make these enemies regret their words and mistakes. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a direct threat. That is a direct threat from the highest Ayatollah in Iran, and he's just made this known to the world. He's just given the call to Muslims around the world. Now, here's the concerning part of this. Was this a green light for the sleeper cells to be activated? And because we know they're here, sleeper cells are here in America, and that's been confirmed by FBI, CIA, officials, Department of Homeland Security, military operatives. Everybody has confirmed this, that this is not gossip or hearsay. This is a real thing. Now, the question is, where? Where are they? We could probably take a guess of probably at least 3 locations. You could think of 3 major cities in America. New York, Chicago, DC, there's 3 of them. We know this. Even in California, guaranteed. Minnesota, are you kidding me? Michigan, are you kidding me? He went on to say that if a Muslim who abides by his Muslim duties suffer hardship or loss in their campaign, they will be rewarded a fighter in the way of God, God willing. This, ladies and gentlemen, again, make no doubts about this. This is a threat. This is a direct threat from Iran to the President of the United States. Now, this fatwa has been formally issued. Now that it has, Donald Trump, Benjamin Netanyahu, and other high-ranking Israeli officials are officially considered to be the Moharib from this point forward. Now, let's dig a little bit deeper in the understanding of what is this Moharib. It is a term used to describe someone who wages war against God, the state, or who is an enemy of God. It is typically used in the context of Sharia law to refer to individuals who take up arms against the government. The charge is often associated with the death penalty, particularly when applied to those who allegedly use weapons to threaten public security. In other words, those who are designated as Moharib in Iran are usually executed. Now, if you think this is not a big deal and you don't think that this is a real threat, look what just happened recently when, I'm going to read this article. Iranian crowds chant death to America and Israel during the funeral for top commanders and scientists killed in Israeli strikes. Again, these were people that was pouring into the street. Thousands of enraged Iranians burned the U.S. flag and chanted death to America and Israel on Saturday as the Islamic Republic buried the head of its armed forces and other top commanders who were killed during the 12-day war. And again, here is pictures of this. Again, I know some of you guys are listening by Apple or by Spotify, but we're looking at an image literally that is thousands of Iranians in the streets chanting death to America, death to Israel. Again, this is an example. This is a slice of what we're talking about here. And if you think for a moment, guys, that there is none of these people here, that there's none of these in America, then again, please show me the rock you're sleeping under. What cave are you living in? Because this is a reality. Meanwhile, you have to wonder about this. This was on X, or Twitter, formerly known as Twitter. Barricades are being placed around the White House and Treasury amid speculation. In other words, why? Overnight, construction crews in Washington, D.C. have been observed erecting large anti-scale barricades around the White House and the U.S. Treasury. This unusual activity has sparked widespread speculation among social media users about potential major announcements or events. The Secret Service has not provided an official reason for these enhanced security measures, leading to a mix of concern and curiosity. Now, one speculation is, once they finalize this big, quote unquote, beautiful bill, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. I'm going to give you what Elon Musk recently come out and said about this bill. And that feud between Trump and Elon is far from over, and it's only getting worse. But Elon Musk, now he's a whistleblower, and he's come forward and he's making some statements that are pretty shocking. Think about everything that has taken place with the bombing of Iran. You have this bill's getting ready to pass, and now we're literally 3 days away from commemorating Independence Day on July 4th. Now, already law enforcement authorities from coast to coast are already put on a state of high alert. Quote, since the announcement of the U.S. airstrikes in Iran last Saturday, major states such as California and New York have been placed on high alert for threats. Earlier this week, Homeland Security announced that it arrested 11 Iranian nationals who were illegally in the country, including an alleged sniper. Are you hearing that? The 11 men were arrested across the country, including from California, Colorado, Maryland, New York, and Texas. Now, in case you missed that, among the 11 Iranian nationals was an alleged sniper. Why are we not hearing anything about this? Why am I not hearing this on Fox News, News Nation, CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, MSNBC? Why am I not hearing about this? Why am I not hearing about it anywhere? Now, I don't know if you guys know who Steve Quayle is, but he was in a recent interview with Greg Hunter, and on that podcast or that interview, he warned that our enemies could choose what he called was asymmetrical warfare against us. I'm going to give you a quote. Everyone should learn the term asymmetrical warfare. This is what you see when you're talking terrorism. Now, he gives you a basic understanding of this. We're talking about refineries being blown up, wildfires being initiated at a much higher pace than ever before. Now, remember, we've been talking about this for a long time, guys. Refineries being blown up, all these sudden train derailments, these situations with aircrafts. We've got food distribution centers catching on fire mysteriously. All these things happen. Look what literally just happened. You had the ambush in Idaho, where an individual deliberately started this wildfire to draw in firefighters and rescue crew and police, only to fire on them. This is the kind of stuff that we're talking about here. This is what you would define, again, as, quote, asymmetrical warfare. And we have to, and before we move on from this point, you have to remember who you're dealing with, guys. When we're talking about this is a radical sect of Islam that they are not afraid of death. In fact, this is a death cult. They embrace it. They believe in 72 virgins in the afterlife. They believe they're doing the duty of Allah, and they will carry this out. They have no problem with this. If they are able to do this, they will absolutely jump on board with doing this. So I want to encourage everyone. Now, we did this last night on our prayer segment. If you have not yet put Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu on your prayer list if you're not already, and you really need to pray for them and intercede for them and ask God to protect them. Now, you may be watching, you say, well, I'm not a fan of Trump. I'm not a fan of Netanyahu. I didn't vote for Trump. I'm not Republican. I'm not conservative. Well, listen, if you're a believer and you call yourself a Christian, according to the book of Romans, we are called to pray for those in positions of leadership that it may go well with our nation or our country. Okay. Second of all, if you consider Trump or Netanyahu your enemy, even Jesus himself said we are to pray for our enemies and bless those who despitefully use us. So there you go. It's covered on both ends. So I'm just throwing that out there, giving you what I believe we should be doing. All right. Meanwhile, this is an interesting piece from Prophecy News Watch. I want to get into this. Here's the headline: what happens in Washington next week could reshape Israel and the Middle East. Now, why? What's going on here, Brother Ricky? Well, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is heading to Washington on Monday. So not yesterday, but the following. This is after 4th of July weekend, all that. So next Monday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is headed to Washington, along with Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer. The Israeli cabinet, according to reports, now the reason why Netanyahu is heading to Washington is he's trying to work out a deal with Trump, and Trump has already posted about this on Truth Social, calling for a deal to, quote, get the hostages back. The message, paired with whispers of a massive regional realignment, raises critical questions, and that is a Gaza deal centered on the hostages being quietly tied to an expanded Abraham Accords. Now, I don't want to go into the details about the Abraham Accords. We just did a whole podcast on that, and we went in great detail about that. So you can look at that in our archives, go on our podcast, on our app. You can find all that there. Now, inside the Abraham Accords, there is current negotiations as a potential framework being floated. Arab nations, perhaps Egypt, Jordan, or even Saudi Arabia, could temporarily take over governance or security responsibility in Gaza following a ceasefire and the return of Israeli hostages. The agreement would help sideline Hamas while maintaining Arab control in the eyes of the region. In exchange, Israel would scale down military operations and exit from the Gaza Strip. Let me say that again. In exchange, Israel would scale down its military operations and exit from the Gaza Strip. Now, will Israel be pressured to agree to a deal that leaves Hamas intact in any form, even by proxy? Will global powers use the return of Israeli hostages as leverage to push broader territorial concessions in Gaza, Judea, or even the Golan Heights? Now, in the midst of all this, consequently, Trump literally this week signed an executive order lifting sanctions on Syria.
At this afternoon, the president will be signing an executive order to terminate the United States sanctions program on Syria. And this is in an effort to promote and support the country's path to stability and peace. The order will remove sanctions on Syria while maintaining sanctions on the former President Assad, his associates, human rights abusers, drug traffickers, persons linked to chemical weapons activities, ISIS and their affiliates, and Iranian proxies. And this is, again, an action that the president promised and shocked the world with in Saudi Arabia, because he's committed to supporting a Syria that is stable, unified, and at peace with itself and its neighbors. The president met with Syria's new president when we were in the Middle East, as you know. And so this is another promise made and promise kept by this president to promote peace and stability in the region.
But look what we have here. Well, Syria. Look at this headline, guys. Syria demands Israeli withdrawal from demilitarized zone in exchange for peace deal. Let's read a little bit about this. Syria's new regime is prepared to recognize Israel as part of a deal ending the state of war that has existed between the two countries for 77 years. This is according to reports by Lebanese, Israeli, and both Turkish media outlets. On Monday, the Hezbollah-aligned, Lebanon-based Al-Akbar outlet cited multiple Syrian officials who claimed the intense discussions are underway with the government of Syrian President Ahmed al-Shari regarding a potential deal with Israel. The Trump administration, which recently lifted sanctions on Syria, has pressed Damascus, there you go, talk about prophecy, they have a prophecy on them, to join the Abraham Accords and reach a, quote, comprehensive peace deal with Israel, normalizing relations between the two countries. However, President al-Shari reported welcomes the idea of establishing a diplomatic relations with Israel, while many within the new regime are said to be pushing for a limited agreement. According to the report, Syrian hardliners had conveyed to the U.S. their misgivings over a broad deal, suggesting instead that Syria and Israel merely sign a memorandum of understanding establishing agreed upon security procedures for the Israeli-Syria frontier. Now, it is unclear whether such an agreement would formally terminate the state of war, which has existed between the two countries since Israel's established it in 1948, a condition sought by the U.S. and reportedly accepted by Syria's president. The security agreement proposed by some in al-Shari's government would restore the Israeli-Syria frontier to the line set by the 74 agreement, linked after the 73 Yom Kippur War, under which Israel ceded parts of the Golan Heights to form a demilitarized zone under Syrian civil control. Following the ouster of Syrian President Bashar Assad last December, Israel seized the demilitarized zone and has operated sporadically deeper into southwestern Syria, attacking pro-Iranian militias and supporting minority groups from attack by Islamic fundamentalists. All right, now, according to a report by Israel's Hebrew Daily, this is a affiliate there in Hebrew, in Israel, under a possible deal being drafted. Listen to this. Israel would gradually withdraw from areas occupied since 2024 of December, returning them to Syria. Syrian sources have suggested, listen to this, the Golan Heights could be turned into a peace garden for joint economic projects of Syria, Israel, and possibly Jordan, which borders the strategic plateau. President al-Shari, has indicated that he doesn't hate Israel and that he, quote, wants peace on that border. Ladies and gentlemen, we are, in case you have not figured this out yet, we are in the season of peace and safety. Right now, we're in the season of peace and safety. When they shall say peace and safety. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. That's where we're at. We're in the season of peace and safety. Now, let's talk about Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has floated normalization in exchange for impossible demands. One of them is they want a Palestinian state, which is the division of Jerusalem, and a freeze on settlement growth in Judea and Samaria. Now, again, I'm going to say that again. Saudi Arabia wants to be a part of the Abrahamic Accords. They want peace in the Middle East, but their contingency is they want a Palestinian state, which will require the division of Jerusalem and a freeze on settlement growth in both Judea and Samaria. So as this thing continues to unfold in real time, there is growing concern that a new Gaza governance plan, whether via Arab states or international coalitions, may become a backdoor path to Palestinian statehood. If Israel halts its military efforts and permits external actors to step in, the world will label it, quote, progress. But in reality, it may become the first brick or first step in a rebuilt road towards dividing the land once again. Wow. So there's a lot of pressure, guys, that's mounting. And it's all building up, and it's centered around the Middle East. Trump is absolutely spearheading this. We talked about this on another podcast. He wants his legacy to be peace in the Middle East. And this is why he was so upset, and he dropped an F-bomb on live television, because when he started seeing that crumble, it got him really fired up, because this is what he wants his legacy to be. And again, we have to ask ourselves, how far will he push Israel? Will Israel be pressured by Saudi Arabia, by Syria, by Egypt, by Lebanon, and by who knows who else is going to be involved in this. Is there going to be all this international pressure? Because you have to remember something, guys. Let's go back to prophecy. We always go back to the Word of God because that is going to be the end game. Now, I typically don't do this very often. I usually stick to King James or New King James, but I want to show you some different angles of translations of this. This is from Zechariah's warning of what will happen to Jerusalem in the last days. This is Zechariah 12. I want to read this. This message concerning the fate of Israel came from the Lord. This message, again, this is from the New Living Translation, guys, is from the Lord who stretched out the heavens, laid the foundations of the earth, and formed the human spirit. Listen to verse 2. Zechariah 12:2, New Living Translation. I will make Jerusalem like an intoxicating drink that makes the nearby nations stagger when they send their armies to besiege Jerusalem and Judah. On that day, I will make Jerusalem an immovable rock. All the nations will gather against it to move it. Let me say that again. All nations will gather against Jerusalem to try to move it. But look at this, they will only hurt themselves. Now we're going to do the same thing with the prophet Joel. Let's go to Joel chapter 3. I want to read this. At the time of those events, says the Lord, when I restore the prosperity of Judah and Jerusalem, that's already happened. That's been fulfilled in prophecy. Jerusalem has blossomed again. It's prospered again. The people has come back to the land. All that's taken place. Now watch this. Then look what he says. I will gather the armies of the world into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and there I will judge them. This is a future judgment. It's a future war where the nations will be judged. And look what he says. They will be judged there for harming my people, my special possession. Again, this is Israel. For scattering my people among the nations and for dividing up my land. So again, ladies and gentlemen, we know where this is going prophetically. That we may be in the season of peace and safety right now. But eventually, we got to go to the second part of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, which says, and then sudden destruction shall come. We know, according to the prophets of the Bible, the day will come when all the nations, including America, will turn their back on Israel and they'll turn against Jerusalem, and they will put their hand in the mix of trying to divide Jerusalem for gain. So why am I telling you this? I just want to prepare you now in the event in the next 3 years. If Donald Trump, who is the sitting president of the United States, if this thing begins to happen a lot faster than what we anticipate, and you see him putting all kinds of pressure and using other nations, again, other Arab nations with America, begin to put incredible pressure on Israel to divide Jerusalem and to surrender land up in the name of peace. Don't freak out. Don't lose your mind. I can't believe Trump would do this. I can't believe it. Prophecy has to be fulfilled. And if this man, I'm telling you, he is determined to leave a legacy of peace. And he's already, guys, in the interview where he dropped the F-bomb, he said, I'm not happy with Israel right now. He called them out. So don't think that just because, we know that Trump has a lot of support for Israel. We know that his faith team and those among his faith team are huge advocates of Israel. They're huge supporters of Israel. Israel's even called Trump the greatest president and the greatest friend they've ever had and supporter. But again, we have to remember a couple things here. Number one, Trump is huge about his own legacy. And if you think this guy, I don't care what, you can get mad at me if you want, but if you think this guy will not throw people under the bus to achieve his goals, then guys, you're naive. He will absolutely do that to achieve his goals. Number two, you got to remember, it doesn't matter who he is, what party he represents. If you voted for him, you didn't vote for him, he's Republican, he's Democrat, whatever the case may be. he is still an instrument and a vessel that God will use ultimately to fulfill his purpose and to fulfill Bible prophecy. So don't be shocked and dismayed if in the next 3 years you begin to see the heart of Trump turn against Israel, where he begins to put international pressure on them to give up peace, to give up land for quote unquote peace. Eventually it's got to happen, by the way, because when you get to Ezekiel 38, 39, Gog-Magog war, it tells you that the state of Israel in that war is they're a place of unwalled villages. They have no gates. They have no bars. They're in a place of complete peace and harmony and safety. But then God himself puts hooks in the jaws of the enemies of Israel and brings them down to Israel in the latter days of Israel. We would call this the last days. Now, meanwhile, in Washington, it's no secret that Elon Musk and Donald Trump are in the middle of a falling out. They had a major falling out. They allegedly was trying to work things out, but now it's just crumbling again. In the latest, I want to show you this article. Let me bring this up here. This is, and multiple outlets have reported this. Elon Musk just made his starkest political threat since the election. What in the world is this about? After declaring he was stepping away from the political spotlight, Elon Musk is back at it again. As the Senate debated Trump's big, beautiful bill on Monday before a final vote, Musk went public and issued a stark warning on his social media platform.
On the other, Elon Musk has just weighed in on anyone voting yes, quoting him now, every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and then immediately voted for the biggest debt increase in history should hang their head in shame. And if that weren't enough, he adds, and they will lose their primary next year if it is the last thing I do on this earth. Now, given that his Mars mission won't be ready to go for years, that's a lot of primaries. But that's not all. He also reiterated his call from 3 weeks ago for a new political party and says he would start one a day after the bill passes.
Elon Musk went on further, and he basically said that the proposed bill could reshape the digital landscape. He voiced his concern, labeling the legislation as a significant threat to free speech and innovation. According to Musk, the bill in question aims to impose stricter regulations on tech companies, particularly in how they handle content moderation and user data. He, quote, I see this as direct attack on the principles that make the internet a place for open dialogue.
Most recently, Trump writing on Truth Social that Musk may get more subsidies than any human being in history so far, and that Elon would probably have to close up shop and head back to South Africa without subsidies. Tyler, is this just palace intrigue, or could this have real ramifications?
Well, I think it's probably a little bit of both. One, this is starting to veer into the personal again with President Trump also appearing to threaten in his post on Truth Social that there should be some sort of investigation because Elon Musk has benefited from government subsidies. He also said that he made clear to Musk when they started working together that he had long been against the tax credits under the Inflation Reduction Act, which we know was considered to be a main policy priority for the Biden administration. But when we actually look at some of the tangible ramifications here, we did get one indication that the money really is starting to flow from both sides. President Trump has threatened to primary Thomas Massie, a Republican from Kentucky in the House, who has said that he will not vote for this bill. And he actually did make good on that promise. The political arm of his campaign operation launched a super PAC against Thomas Massie. But then we had Elon Musk yesterday confirming that he donated to Thomas Massie's campaign, really putting their money where they're saying that they would. And that's going to be a really interesting dynamic to watch if we see money flooding in from both sides. Because, Danny, keep in mind, Elon Musk contributed more than $290 million during the 2024 cycle to both the White House race, but also to congressional races, which made him the largest U.S. political donor during the cycle.
Meanwhile, another warning came out. The Trump administration is building a, quote, national citizenship data system. According to NPR, the Trump administration has for the first time ever built a searchable national citizenship data system. The tool, which is being rolled out in phases, is designed to be used by state and local election officials to give them an easier way to ensure only citizens are voting. But it was developed rapidly without a public process, and some of those officials are already worrying, about what else it could be used for. NPR is the first news organization to report the details of the new system. Legal experts told NPR they were alarmed that a development of this magnitude was already underway without a transparent and public process. Quote, "That is a debate that needs to play out in public setting," said John Davison, the director of litigation at the nonprofit Electronic Privacy Information Center. Quote, "It's one that deserves public scrutiny and sunlight, that deserves the participation of elected representatives, that deserves opportunities for the public to weigh in through public comment and testimony." Now, here's another. Ron Paul also came out and said that President Trump is, quote, "unleashing a great, big, ugly surveillance state." Now, according to Ron Paul, this database that Trump is constructing and has built, again, he's working through this company called Palantir. We did a whole podcast on that. Don't want to go into complete details about that because, again, we would just be rehashing a lot of this, but I'm going to read this. This is a database consisting of all the information of American citizens collected by various federal agencies such as the Social Security Administration, the Department of Health and Human Services, and the Pentagon. All of this would be, quote, "a major step in creating a total surveillance state." Let me say that again. According to Ron Paul, this database, again, will consist of all of the information of American citizens collected by these major federal agencies. We're talking about Social Security Administration, the Department of Health and Human Services, and the Pentagon. All of this, according to Ron Paul, would be a major step, and he's not the only one sounding the alarm on this. Even Elon Musk now, we just showed you that, is coming out warning about this, is creating a total surveillance state. This database could come in handy to future Dr. Fauci seeking to enforce mask and vaccine mandates. Guys, he's not wrong. Whether you like Ron Paul or you don't, he's absolutely correct on this. Those with access to this database, again, he's talking about in the future. He's looking, and he's like we are. We look out into the future because I'm not saying Ron Paul's a believer, but let's go back to, again, we talk about end time headlines. What is it? News and headlines from a prophetic perspective, right? We're talking about the beast system here. This is all setting the stage for the beast system. This database could come in handy for, again, future Dr. Fauci seeking to enforce mask and vaccine mandates. Those with access to this database could see, quote, personal health records, education records, and tax returns of all of us, including you. They may even be able to see how many firearms individuals have purchased and if they were associated with any organizations the government has labeled extremist. Are y'all paying attention now or are you still asleep? Look at this. The abandonment of liberty because fear drives people to trust government promises of safety is a phenomenon we have witnessed several times in this century. Hello, pandemic. An obvious example is the way many former friends of freedom supported the Patriot Act and other infringements on liberty following the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. Yes, that's another great example. We also saw it during the COVID hysteria when many embraced mask and vaccine mandates. Following the 2008 market meltdown, normally rather staunch opponents of government intervention supported the bailouts because they agreed with then President George W. Bush, who said he had, quote, abandoned free market principles to save the free market system. This is, again, we're driving it home here, guys. Let me recap this a little bit. We got about 10 minutes. We're going to close this program out today. So we've got all eyes are on Washington. All eyes are on the Middle East. We got the formation, the framework of the Abraham Accords. In the midst of that is this proposal of this two-state solution. This is all in the framework of this. This is being worked out. And we don't know all the strings that's being pulled and the strings attached to this and the contingencies and the requirements. And I believe Israel's being pressured. I believe Trump behind the scenes is pressuring Israel more than what we're being told. I absolutely believe that. We don't know what's going to be the outcome of this. We're going to stand by. We're going to keep an eye on this. We're going to watch this for the next couple of weeks. Meanwhile, you've got this falling out in the MAGA community with Trump and Elon. Elon is a whistleblower now, saying that he's saying the same thing Ron Paul is. He's warning about hidden in this bill is the threat to our freedoms. This massive surveillance system. Even Joe Rogan, we talked about this on an earlier podcast, how he came out and said buried in the pages of this bill is the writing of basically that there's not going to be any regulations on artificial intelligence for the next 10 years. And we gave our opinion on why that is. I believe 100% the reason why the Trump administration does not want any regulations on artificial intelligence is because that would put a huge damper on the project of Stargate, which they want in the next 5 years to have that fully established, which consequently involves a massive database system. So guys, come on, is anybody paying attention? Are you awake in the podcast tonight? Are you on Apple, on Spotify? Are you paying attention out there? Are you paying attention in the chat on YouTube, on Rumble? Are you wherever you're watching? Are you seeing how all of this is coming together? So I want to leave you, as always, with Luke 21:28. We're not to worry, we're not to fret, we're not to be discouraged nor dismayed. But Jesus said, when you begin to see all of these things coming to pass, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. Listen, endtimeheadlines.org, endtimeheadlines.com. That's going to be our main website. Be sure to bookmark the site, download the free app, get it today. Hit yes to push notifications, all breaking news, prophecy update, podcast, live sessions that we do, the devotionals, all that's going to be right there. It's going to alert you right there on your fingertips. And as always, guys, we want to give it an opportunity. If this ministry blesses you, informs you, equips you, all of the above, we would love for you to pray about becoming a monthly partner. You can do that 2 different ways. You can give electronically through the app, through the website, various ways electronically to do that. You can hit the support tab at the top of the YouTube chat, or if you're watching a rebroadcast of this, or in your regular comment section, you'll see that on YouTube as well. On Rumble, again, just go to endtimeheadlines.org. You can find all that information there. You can give that way, or you can give by check or money order, and you can make it out to right there on your screen. End Time Headlines, P.O. Box 1391. That's going to be Monroe, Georgia, 30655. As always, guys, I just want to take the time to thank you and publicly express my gratitude for all of our partners, our supporters of our ministry, because if it were not for you and supporters like you, we would not be able to keep doing this week after week after week. All right, guys, so being that Friday is going to be July 4th and it's Independence Day, and most people will be commemorating that, they'll be celebrating that, we're going to be taking off on Friday. So we're going to be off. Now listen to me carefully. We're going to be off tomorrow, which we're typically off on Wednesdays. So we're going to go ahead and take off tomorrow, and we'll be back here on Thursday night, July the 3rd. Okay. And then we'll be off Friday, and then we'll come back on since we took another day off this week, typically during the week, we'll come back on again like we did last weekend, and we'll come on during the weekend, probably Sunday night. So again, let me say that one more time. We'll be off tomorrow night, which will be Wednesday the 2nd. We'll be back on the 3rd, and we'll be off Friday. So we'll be off Wednesday and Friday this week. We'll be back on Thursday and probably Sunday night. So I just want you to take notes, so that way if you don't see us out there, you'll be like, oh, I hope everything's okay. Is something wrong with Brother Ricky? Is there going to be a podcast? That's why we announce these things. And that's why we always tell people to stick around. Don't just sign out. And they lose the announcements, so they're not up to date on that. So anyway, I wanted to make that out there, let you know that. So listen, we're going to sign off for tonight. Again, we appreciate you guys. Love you. Have a safe couple days, and we'll be right back here on Thursday with another great podcast. We'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to the End Time Headlines podcast. We pray that you've been blessed and equipped by today's message. For more information about how you can help partner with our ministry, please visit endtimeheadlines.org.